The Merc with a Mouth, Deadpool, has been added in Season 6 of Marvel Rivals. He's a unique new character that can fill each of the different roles of Vanguard, Duelist, and Strategist, each with his own kit. In Character Select, you're going to pick which Deadpool you're going to be by picking the appropriate one for the appropriate grouping, and then you're going to lock in as that character. In this video, we're going to go over the specifics of the Duelist role, or Damagepool as it's going to become to be known. Deadpool's a stance changer that switches between long-range guns and close-range swords. His sword is going to have higher damage output, and the guns are going to be better for poking and precision attacks. He's got a high ammo pool of 30 for how slowly he shoots, so he doesn't have to reload very often, and takes about 7 shots to kill your average duelist with body shots, or 4 headshots. For the most part in game, you're going to be using the gun to pepper onto faraway targets that are in vulnerable positions, either people that have been dived on by enemies, or flyers that are out of line of sight of their allies. You don't want to be overly using this in the game on enemy tanks, because that's just going to charge up the enemy healer ultimates. Don't be too trigger happy, instead only really be shooting at the tanks when there's an opening coming up that could result in a kill. These guns are hit scans, so as long as your cursor's on the target and you fire, you're going to deal that damage. When your guns are out, you have a unique melee ability that's going to be a kick and then a bum smash. This doesn't do any particularly great damage, and I haven't found any interrupt kind of style abilities to make this actually useful, so it's mostly just silly. With the shift key, you can switch over to your swords, and then become a close range attacker. Your basic attack is going to be 2 slashes, then a set of rapid jabs, followed up by a cross slash. This 3 attack combo requires 2 full rotations to kill your average duelist. Outside of headshots, you're going to kill enemies a lot faster with these swords than you would with the pistols, so it's going to be your preferred method for big team fights, as long as you can get in close and stay safe. Now when you're playing Deadpool, you're going to see this red bar at the bottom of your screen below your HP. This is your experience bar, and Deadpool gains experience as he does actions of the game. When the bar fills up, it goes yellow and he levels up. He can activate the F key to open up a comic book, which is going to give him the option to upgrade each of his different abilities. You can click the ability or press the appropriate key shown in the top left corner to upgrade that effect. Each of your abilities can be upgraded once and gets a new special effect once upgraded. By the end of the game, all of your abilities should be upgraded and you'll be at maximum power. But at the start, you're going to be at your weakest state. You need to be careful and choosy about what upgrades you're taking. When you upgrade your dual Desert Eagles, you're going to get those gold 50 cals. This is going to up your damage output pretty significantly, now taking only 6 body shots or 3 headshots to kill your average duelist. You also get a unique new effect. Beside your character, you're going to get this floating poop emoji. Every time you shoot, even if you miss a target, it's going to fill the emoji up a little bit. And once you've shot 5 times, the emoji will be filled up and it's going to fire off, shooting at the target for some damage. This just generally increases your poke output and makes it so you can have an easier time taking down targets. The combined increase in damage from your Desert Eagles, as well as this poop firing off, make sure you secure more kills. And this should be one of your biggest priorities when you're fighting flyers, or at a point where you're really having difficulty breaking through the enemy lines. If instead of upgrading your guns, you upgrade your swords, your katanas are going to go gold and silver. This upgrade makes it so that whenever you attack with the katanas, you get rapidly increased attack speed, able to shred enemies quite a bit faster. It also ups the damage of the katana slightly, but not too meaningful. Still taking 3 full rotations to kill a target, but you might be able to deal with healing from enemies a little bit better. The other bonus from upgrading your swords comes with your double jump. Deadpool has a passive double jump that he can activate anytime in the open. If he jumps, he can jump again for a small boost up in the air. But this has a unique mechanic. For Damagepool, if you're near walls or enemy players, when you perform this double jump, it doesn't go on cooldown, and it does a small amount of damage to enemy players. This can give you some pretty crazy mobility, and you can bounce around between fights pretty well if you're able to coordinate it well. Constantly getting on top of enemies and performing this jump is going to keep you bouncing around in the air, and if you do it properly, you can also be constantly unleashing sword attacks while you're doing this. This makes Deadpool very hard to track and very annoying for enemies that he gets on top of. Once his swords have been upgraded, if he performs this double jump, his basic attack becomes a set of rapid jabs. Every time he does the double jump, his next basic is going to be the jabs instead of the initial attack. As long as you can animation cancel interrupt these bounces and stabs, you can do some crazy damage with these. In gun mode, you get headshot. This shoots out your player indicator, which flies forward, rotates a couple of times, dealing damage to targets in the area, and then returns. got around a 25-meter range for this effect, but if you point it at terrain, it'll stop earlier once it hits it. You're often going to be wanting to jump up and shoot this at the ground below the target that you want to fight. This will deal that constant damage over time to them, and then get it to do the chunk damage as it returns. This does great teamfight damage and should be used to help you secure kills and win group fights. Upgrading Headshot makes it so that it repeats multiple times. After firing it out, this red indicator appears on your screen. After the initial damage and it returns to you, it will bounce back out as long as you have one of these indicators. It'll go out, deal some damage, return, bounce again, grow in size, and deal more damage. You'll fire it off one more time, and it'll spin around and do even more damage, and then explode. This is a hugely powerful tool. It makes the ability way more devastating, and as long as you can coordinate and make sure that the spinning effect lands on multiple enemies, you're going to have some huge damage output from this. This is again an upgrade you're going to want to take if you're a little bit more on the back foot, struggling to get the wins in the fights. This is going to give you quite a bit of pressure into fights, but keep you safe from a distance. For swords, your alternate fire is a short duration dash. At the end of it, you'll do a sword slash. This is your primary mobility tool, and you're going to rush around the battlefield using this to get up to high places. This will be your main way to navigate through the field and get to enemies from surprising angles. But it's also an important part of your damage combo. You have 2 charges of this ability, but if you hit an enemy with the slash, you can activate it 2 more times as long as each of those hits slashes an enemy. Either hitting an enemy 3 times or missing any of the slashes, that ability will then go on cooldown. And then you get your second charge, which means you can get 6 total slashes against enemies before this ability is fully on cooldown. This is great for bouncing around a fight, making sure to be able to get onto vulnerable targets. You can use the initial dash at the start of the fight to dash onto an enemy vanguard, move behind them, and then use the next dash to get onto the backliners. Then sticking to the backliners with the remaining 4 dashes. If you upgrade Hazardous Hijinks, it's now going to get the new effect of whenever you hit a target, you bounce slightly into the air. It also now shows a red indicator in the middle of the screen instead of that white one. And this new indicator just shows that you get unlimited activations. As long as you don't miss a dash, you're going to continue being able to use the dash effect to get that damage off. Really good Deadpool players are going to be able to juggle themselves throughout teamfights, constantly staying in the air and getting this attack off. Using animation cancels with their basic attack to get maximum damage off in the fight, and shredding enemy teams. It's going to be really hard to keep track of him in close range fights, and you're going to be able to shred down enemies, bouncing about and keeping yourself pretty darn safe. If you get into a dangerous situation, you quickly dash off to the side and then use your remaining charge to get yourself to safety. If you're winning, this is the bread and butter ability you want to upgrade. It's going to give you so much more pressure onto the enemy team and allow you to run people down really reliably. The damage output is great, and feeding that with upgraded katanas is going to just result in so much kill pressure. Deadpool in your area is your E ability. Activating this, you create a ring around you. This is going to deal damage to enemies within the effect. It also reduces the damage that you take. While enemies are within this effect, they're going to get taunted. This is a new, unique to Deadpool ability that puts a bunch of Deadpools on their screen, making it hard for them to focus. These Deadpools are going to be dancing around, riding scooters, and being generally distracting. The combination of Deadpool bouncing around constantly and having this effect out giving all sorts of clutter on people's screens is going to make it very hard for enemies to keep track of him. Upgrading this slightly increases the damage it does over time and adds a new effect to the taunt. A roll of tape will roll across the bottom of the player's screen, covering their HP, ammo, and ability cooldowns. The player's now going to have way less insight into the state of the game and the state of their current character, and can really mess people up. With all these distractions on the screen, you can definitely see how Deadpool is going to be hard to deal with. Now, before talking about his 2 ultimates, Deadpool also has 2 passives that we have to explain. First up is his healing factor. After taking damage, if he manages to get out of harm's way for 6 seconds, he will then begin healing over time, healing himself up back to full HP. If you can get out of harm's way and stay safe, Deadpool can keep returning to the fight, being a distraction, and then dashing away and getting himself healed up. There doesn't seem to be a cooldown right now on the PTR on this, but a cooldown's mentioned in the ability skills, so this might just not be enabled. His alternate passive is Maximum Flair. You're going to notice on top of your ultimate indicator this E rank. This is your current Flair ranking. Whenever you do actions in the game, you're going to get Flair points, which will slowly upgrade this rank all the way from E through D, C, B, A, and finally up to S. Once your Flair rank is S, you're able to activate one of your ultimates. Killing targets, getting headshots, and bouncing on players' heads gives you the most amount of Flair that you can get. But Damagepool has a unique ability to get some significant Flair. Even with no upgrades, you can do this combo to get yourself from E all the way to S Flair if done correctly. Or you can do parts of this combo just to get yourself some major Flair boostage. Start out in your gun form and do a basic attack into headshot at the player's foot, and then activate your E ability. Finally, jump, switch over to your swords, and do a double jump on the player's head, do an alternate fire slash, while doing one more animation cancel slash. You can perform this combo in about 1 second, and it'll generate you from E all the way to S if done correctly. The biggest thing is that the E ability is going to drastically increase the amount of Flair you get per attack, and the return of your headshot is going to give you some massive Flair. This combo gives you a huge boost. Once you do have full Flair, you have two options. In gun form, you can activate Skill Issue. You'll shout out, "What are you aiming at?" This effect makes it so that anytime the player misses a shot, they take a big chunk of damage. It also adds another taunting Deadpool to their screen. A Deadpool with a little hammer will appear and it'll bash them on the head every time they miss a shot. This effect is quite powerful in one-on-one duels while you're really being evasive and bouncing around the fight. Using your other taunts to fill their screen with effects makes it harder for them to make sure they're hitting their shots, and they'll get chunked down from this ability. If you use it on somebody and they just stop shooting, it's not going to do anything, but it also removes their damage output or healing or whatever they were up to. This is primarily your one-on-one tool as it only affects a single player, and really isn't the one that you're going to be activating too often. But I find it really good on things like Punisher Ultimate or Star-Lord when he's just doing his regular attacks. Because of the rapid rate of fire of their attacks, they're often missing shots, and it's going to chunk them down rather quickly. Upgrading Skill Issue adds two new effects. Even if the player hasn't missed a shot, they're still going to take some damage every second. And anytime they do miss a shot, not only do they take the previous chunk of damage, but they also get the vulnerable condition for a short period, increasing all damage taken. An upgraded Skill Issue should kill a player in 3 missed shots, which is pretty significant. And using this on the right player to eliminate them from the start of a fight can be huge. In sword form, your ultimate is Pop Quiz. Upon activation, you're going to get a burst of movement speed, and your healing factor is going to kick in, giving you constant healing. Addition to this new indicator shows up above your ultimate ability. It's going to show you a set of abilities that you have to activate, and a number of them that you have to do. For Duelist, you're going to need 5 activations, and those are going to be uses of your headshot, double jumping on enemies' heads, as well as using your alternate fire dash to bounce on enemies. If you successfully complete all 5 of these actions in the 12 seconds, you're going to get a huge boost to your healing and movement speed. I highly recommend you have Hazardous Hijinks upgraded before you ever try to use this ultimate. This will make sure you have unlimited dash resets as long as you keep hitting enemies, and should make hitting the 5 requirement pretty easy. You also want to make sure that you have both of the charges of Hijinks available before you activate the ultimate, because any hit on a shielded target or any miss is going to set that ability on cooldown. If you end up not bouncing on any targets on that first skill usage, you can quickly fail the ultimate. Upgrading Pop Quiz just adds damage boost to the list of effects, and makes it so when you complete the challenge, you get even more speed, healing, and damage. These are often the last upgrades I'm going to pick up, usually picking up Pop Quiz before I pick up Skill Issue. Upgrading the rest of your kit usually feels better, unless you're really good at chaining success during that Pop Quiz ultimate. Anytime Deadpool gets a kill or assist, he can look at the corpse of that body and get a close-in shot. This will begin a selfie animation where Deadpool will take a picture of himself with that corpse. During this animation, he's completely immune to damage from enemy effects, and his healing passive can kick in, healing him up to maximum. This can be really critical if you get a lucky move into the enemy team and able to take somebody down, but you're in a very risky situation and you need your team to be able to come in and back you up. You can use this selfie pose to quickly allow yourself a little bit of breathing room, possibly get some cooldowns back, and get the flow of the fight to change a little bit. Also, you can use this to avoid several different ultimates. This is going to take a lot of work to get used to, and most of the time you're not going to use it at the right times, but it's a fun, interesting move. Alright, so we've gone over everything and kind of talked about how you should be using it, but let's talk about how to actually play Damagepool. At the very start of the game, you're at your weakest state. You're going to be relying on pistol play, doing shots on vulnerable targets. Don't just constantly shoot at the enemy tanks, because you're just going to be powering up the enemy support ultimates. Instead, hold your shots and plan out who you're going to fire on based off your allies' actions. If there's any kind of diver going for a backliner, try and get yourself eyes on that target to be able to help them take them down. Focus shots on any flyers up in the sky, as your hit scan abilities will really shred them down, and 3 headshots will be able to take them out. Look for openings where the enemy vanguards have broken line of sight from their healers, and then try and do an all-in of damage out on that target, throwing out your headshot, switching to swords, dashing in on them, and doing all 6 of your dashes if possible. This huge burst of damage if a target gets behind a wall or out of line of sight can really help your team take somebody down, and getting that player advantage is going to be pretty big. You could also play a little bit as a flanker, moving around the back lines and using your dash to be able to get yourself to off angles. Then plan out a moment where you can come out using your 6 dashes and sword strikes onto a backline player. If they manage to get away with low health, switch over to guns and finish them off. If your team is winning the game, upgrade hijinks first and then upgrade swords. After that, I would upgrade headshots and then pistols. If you're losing the game, you're going to want to start with a headshot upgrade and pistol upgrade. Then moving on to Deadpool in the area before you upgrade your sword attacks. Upgrading your guns allows you to catch up when you're having difficulty and allows you to stay safer and make more optimal plays. Where upgrading your swords gives you higher risk for higher reward. If you're already winning, that risk shouldn't make it so that you're then going to start losing. But if you're in an off-foot position and you're already struggling to win fights, sword upgrades are not likely to make it so that you change that flow. They're more about winning more than they are about getting you an advantage. Never just dash into an enemy team as Deadpool, make sure somebody else is supporting you when you do so. Another Vanguard, another Diver, or at minimum, make sure you have Deadpool in the area so you can fill their screen with distractions while you're in there doing action, and you have reduced damage taken so you're more likely to survive. When you're using your ultimate, make sure you plan out when it's going to happen. You've built up your maximum skill, and make sure you have either both your dashes available if you plan to do a pop quiz, or you have a planned target that is definitely going to be missing some shots if you're going to use skill issue. Another option, if the enemy team has a healer like Luna Snow or a healing Deadpool, putting skill issue on them can be really great. Because of their requirement to have good aim to get healing off, they're going to be missing quite a few shots and taking big chunk damage from that skill issue. You often don't want to use this on melee characters or channelers because they're going to have an easier time making sure that their attacks land. Although if you see one of those Hulk style players that just constantly punches the sky, dropping a skill issue on them while they keep punching can really shred them down when they're not used to it. Try and pair Pop Quiz with other major abilities from your team. If they're able to do something like a Groot ultimate to lock down the enemy team, or a Gambit ultimate to give you major damage boosts, you're then going to be able to go and get way more advantage out of that ability than if you just use it on your own. It definitely pairs really well with any kind of damage boost like Storm, Rocket Raccoon's ultimate, Mantis, anything that can give you a boost of damage while you use Pop Quiz can allow you to shred down the enemy team. And the extra safety you get from the constant healing over time is going to make it so it's really hard for the enemy team to take you down. You really need to practice this character. He's not easy. On the skill line, he comes up as 0 stars, but I would definitely call him more of a 5-star character. There's a lot to get used to, and there's a lot of complexities in how his kit interacts with each other. Planning out and tracking your upgrades, making sure you know what ultimate to use, and having a good flow state between gun and sword mode are all really important to actually being successful in this character. I think he has a lot of potential to be very oppressive, and when played on teams that are a little bit ahead of the enemy team, it's going to feel like there's nothing that the enemy can do. But he's also got a steep learning curve, and because he starts games off in a really weak state, he can definitely lead to some snowballing of failure for your team. If they get frustrated from your early poor performance, you're not able to get the upgrades you need to keep up, your team is going to definitely fall to its knees. Because of the hit scan and strange rate of fire of his guns, I do recommend trying to spend quite a bit of time in the practice range just doing shot drills. Get used to his rate of fire and how often he shoots, and get used to tracking on targets, doing your best to slowly trace movers. The game's not as fast paced as sometimes it feels like, and once you get a little bit better at tracing through targets' movements, you're going to have a better time performing on characters like Deadpool. I'd usually recommend keeping your second charge of hijinks off cooldown. If you use the first charge and you miss a dash, you're going to want to use the second charge to get yourself back to safety. Only really using the resets from the first charge and saving the second one for your own escape. Only utilizing it if it's going to secure you a kill that should leave you in a safe state. Trading 1-for-1 is very rarely worth it in this game, so you definitely want to be keeping that escape method available. And practice learning what maps he can do his double jump on to get really good vantage points. With all that, you should have the understanding you need to play Damagepool. Now get into your matches, unload those pistols, stab your enemies, and succeed with Deadpool.